Hello, hello. Okay, I'm going live on YouTube. I'm not sure if this is working, so I'm going to figure that out first before I start talking. So if you are live with me right now, please do let me know, okay? Um, Let me see if I can figure out where I can see a chat. Okay, hello, hello. Okay, I think I'm live. Okay, I see one person. Okay, great. Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Tatiana. It's been a minute since I've been here on YouTube. It's been a long time actually. So I felt like I should probably check in. I should probably pop in, say hi, give you guys an update, answer questions. So I am here to answer questions. So if you do have them, feel free to post in the comment section. I will get to them. But I just want to let you guys know that I'm here in Panama. And I'm here with Stefan and with Lucas, and we've just been enjoying our lifestyle here. And I just haven't been sharing it on social media. And so I've taken a big step back from what I have done previously with business and with YouTube. And it's been a journey. So a lot has changed after having my son. And I'm happy to share with you guys the reasoning behind that, what's going on, my mindset, where I'm at, and answer any questions you guys have around that. Because I know that one of the biggest questions I got asked after I had Lucas was, how do you manage to do it all? How do you manage to be an entrepreneur and have a kid? And I said, when I figure that out, I will let you know. And I have kind of gone down a different path, and I'm happy to elaborate on that for you guys. But just want to check in with you guys to see, hey, I'm going to give you guys some shout outs. Patricia, hi, nice to see you in the chat there. Yes, I am back, but it doesn't mean that I'm back for long. I'm not making any promises with creating content because as I'll get into, things are just changing for me. My intentions behind business, my desires, what I want to do with my time has really shifted. And so if I am going to pop in here from time to time, it's really because I miss talking to you guys and I want to have a good time. But I can't make any promises in terms of the consistency of putting out content. So hi Mansoor, I see you. Great. Okay. So I'm glad to know that some of you guys are still here with me because I know I have, I've kind of been MIA for a while. And yeah, so after having Lucas, everything changed in my life, of course. When you become a mom, your whole world turns upside down in a beautiful way. It rocks your world. And Steph and I had been very intentional about having children. We had decided, we want to have kids. That is our goal in life. We want to have a family. We want to raise a family together. But we want to make sure that we are in a good place before we have kids so that we can really be present parents, so that we can really raise them in such a way that we can give them our time, our attention, and we're not so distracted with the work. And so thanks to God, I'm very grateful. We were able to both achieve financial success. As you guys know, you know the whole story. Thanks to selling on Amazon and online business, and it's really been such a blessing in our lives. And that's why both of us, we still highly recommend for anyone to start an online business, because that was the one thing that changed both of our lives. Not just him, it's great if one person in a relationship it has a successful online business, but the fact that both of us were able to create success online is really awesome. And it completely changed everything for us because we now get to live a very different lifestyle. And not only do we have that flexibility to be mobile, to travel where we want and live where we want, which is what we did for so many years. We traveled all over the world, And we had a lot of fun. We built a lot of memories. We experienced many different cultures, and that was so cool to do that with him, because now Stefan and I have been together for 10 years, and we can look back on all of these magical experiences that we had together. And, we're still young. We still got our whole lives ahead of us. But now also have the flexibility to live in a country that we want to live in. So we're both originally from Canada. We decided that moving to Panama would be the best option for us, for various reasons. I'm not going to get into them because I've talked about them in other videos. If you have specific questions, do ask. But we decided that this would be the best fit for the lifestyle that we want. And funny enough, now that we're here, I've met so many Canadians here, so many people that have, I guess since COVID, COVID really changed things for the world. I think a lot of people decided to build online businesses or try and, work more from home, and also decided that they could live life. I don't know what's happening with my voice. Clearly I haven't been talking for a while. They've decided that they could live, get by with a little bit less. And I've met so many, expats or immigrants here that come from the US and from Canada. And it's really cool to see how, we're not the only ones. There's a lot of people who make the same decision as us. And so far that's been a wonderful decision. We're really, really blessed. Like, that's something I'm so grateful for every single day, grateful to God to be able to live this beautiful life and to really live it. Every day I go out on the beach with Lucas, and we go and I pull him on his little truck, and he's obsessed with trucks right now, and tractors, like real obsession. And we walk on the beach and we're picking up seashells, and it was always my dream to have this kind of experience with my family. And so I feel very humbled and very grateful that I get to do this. And so that's part of the reason, excuse me, I don't know why my voice is cracking up. It's part of the reason why I decided to take a big step back from my business. Because at the end of the day, I did become financially free, which means that I don't have to work anymore if I don't want to. And again, I feel very grateful for that, because that gives me the option on, what do I want to do with my time. And after having Lucas, I truly felt like there's nothing more important that I can do with my time than to be raising my son. And the alternative is to have an institution raise him. And so when I had to, was there a choice between having to raise Lucas or do business? No, I could do both if I wanted to. But because I don't have to do business to bring in money anymore, because we're set financially, I still do investing, which, we make a lot of income from our investments, passive income from our investments, which is really the key in becoming financially free long term. Because you can make a lot of money with business, right? Like, you can become a successful entrepreneur, make a lot of money through your business that's just sitting in your account. But, money just sitting in your account is a depreciating asset just by the nature of it. So you've got to learn how to invest that money. And when you invest that money and you learn how to invest in dividend-paying stocks, in things that will generate income for you passively, for us, that is just kind of the key to our financial future. So we both, that's what we kind of focus on right now more, is on the passive investment side. We're not active investors. We're definitely passive, but nonetheless, as you guys know, probably the stock market is really high right now, so it's been great to see that. So I've really focused my time now on choosing to raise Lucas, and that means that I have very little time for business and the things that I used to do before. And also, being a homemaker, my goodness, I had no idea the amount of responsibility it is to have a home. We've always rented. We've been traveling for so many years and rented, and now we have this really big house, and it's a lot to manage. When you're thinking about what it is that you want and your future, and you're dreaming and you're visualizing and you're creating your vision board, and you think, I want to have multiple homes. You don't factor in the management that comes with those multiple homes and the upkeep and the maintenance. So that's also very time consuming. So just wanted to kind of explain to you where I'm at right now, what I'm doing with my time, and it's just being used on, you know, raising my son, taking care of my home, making my home a home, because, you know, we built this house here in Panama, and to make it a home is something different. And also, I've really shifted my focus towards health, more towards health than ever before. You know, I have always considered myself a healthy person. I always cared about eating well, about going to the gym. And I've really taken it to another level because I've now learned how to cook. And you can only be healthy, a healthy person to an extent, if you're not cooking your food yourself. That's the truth that I didn't want to hear before. I thought, you know, yeah, I can order salads and stuff, but you really can't. If you're eating out at restaurants, you're getting seed oils, you don't know what's in your food. So now, you know, I'm making all of our meals from scratch. We're not eating any processed foods. We don't eat packaged foods. I mean, I shouldn't say not at all. We try and limit it as much as possible. So, you know, I'm making my own breads. I'm making milk and yogurt. I'm making cheese. I'm making all the desserts that we eat. Everything I'm trying to make myself, and that's been a huge learning curve. I'm making also very healthy things like kefir and probiotic foods, and so I would love to share some of that stuff with you guys because to me, that's a really big investment of my time is in cooking food. You know, and it's kind of a wow. I clearly have not been talking for a long time because my voice is just cracking up. But it is a big investment of my time to be cooking 3 meals a day. Like, it is very time consuming. It's a bit disheartening when you put in all this effort to make food and then it's just eaten that day. You have nothing to show for it tomorrow, which is the total opposite of business. In business, you can be putting, you know, 3-4 hours of your time into your work, and you know that those results are going to compound over time. You know you're going to reap the fruits of your labor. And so it's a bit of a mindset shift when it comes to healthy eating and that healthy lifestyle, because you're putting in a lot of time and action, but you don't necessarily see the results. You just have to trust that the results are long-term, an investment in the health of myself and my family. And so ever since having Lucas, I've just kind of really taken things up a level when it comes to health because he's my responsibility. Like, you know, it's my job as a parent to provide him with healthy food options so that he can grow up and he can thrive and he can become that strong, beautiful young boy that he's supposed to be, and not fill him with all this processed and packaged crap that's going to really wire his taste buds to craving all of these foods as he grows older, and it can just lead to really poor health with time. The body's really tough. It can endure a lot for a long time, but inevitably it will break down in disease. And that is the epidemic that we see throughout North America. As people get older, just diseases popping up. Everyone seems to have a disease, and it shouldn't be that way. And it wasn't that way many, many years ago when we didn't have all this crap available at our fingertips. So convenience comes at a cost. It might be cheaper momentarily, but long-term it comes at a cost. So that is another thing that's been occupying my time, and that's something that I'm excited to share with you guys if you are interested in that, because I think that it's one of the greatest gifts that you can give your family to kind of keep everyone healthy. So I'm going to answer some questions and we will move on. Okay, Rana says, what are you currently doing to earn? So as I mentioned before, we are in a place where we have achieved financial freedom. I know it sounds a little wonky and silly to say that, but I don't know any other way to describe it. We don't have to work actively to produce active income right now. When we work and when we do make money, you know, it's great. We can continue to save, invest that, or use that money as we wish. But right now, what we're doing to earn is mostly investing. So we're mostly investing in the stock market. We also have real estate investments. We also have cryptocurrency. But I would say the majority of our assets are in the stock market, and we are not day traders. We're not active investors. We're very passive investors. But we like to seek out stocks that pay dividends. Stocks that pay dividends, basically, they pay you every quarter. Like you get a reward for buying the stock, and that's free money. It's passive income essentially, and it's the most passive source of income that I know of. I've talked a lot about different ways of making passive income through business, and there are plenty, but they're not 100% passive. They can be passive for a while, or they can be passive when you set them up, set systems up in place, or hire people to outsource some of the work. But over time, you need to be actively investing your time to make sure things are running properly. With these passive income these dividend-paying stocks, it truly is a passive source of income. So it's really great because every quarter we get paid, and then what we do is we have it turned on a drip, which means that the dividends get reinvested back into the stock. So instead of, you could pull it out if you want to use that income, and that becomes your lifestyle income, what you use to pay for your expenses. But for us, we just continue to reinvest that, so over time it just grows and grows. Vincent is asking, did you ever finish your guys' house? Yes, we did, and we actually did a house tour on YouTube, so if you haven't seen that, check it out. Yeah, it was a big project, but we're really, really happy with how it turned out. I mean, as you guys probably know, when you have a house, it's continuously trying to improve things. It's never ending. There's always things that need to be fixed or repaired or renoed, and so we're constantly doing that, but it is, for the most part, done. Anka says, do you think you had a train in life? If yes, no, if you would have found out about Amazon in 2023, let's say, would you have had the same life? No. So of course, I mean, that's the thing, is that you can always think what if when you think of the past or the future. Anything could have gone different. If anything did go differently, a lot would have changed, right? So of course there is an element of just being, doing what I did at the perfect time, and things just falling into place. There's an element of luck, if you will, that comes with that. Of course, there is hard work and determination and focus. All of that is all part of success, but you can't deny that there's also a part of it that you just cannot, that's just out of your control. And I like to think that it's God having his hand in things, but there's always an element of luck, and everyone has luck in their lives. There's times where you come across luck, and there's times where you might feel like you don't. And I think for me, when I started selling on Amazon, I really started at a great time. And so at the time, Amazon FBA was the biggest thing, fulfilled by Amazon, in which you would private label a product. So you would find a product that's already selling well on Amazon. You do some product research. You then go and see, okay, where can I manufacture this? Oftentimes you would go and look in China, and you would find manufacturers there that are already producing this product. You negotiate with them. Then what you do is you private label it. So you put your own branding on the product. So you're not inventing anything new. You're just going to be putting your own branding on it. And then you would ship it to Amazon. You would sell it under your own brand. And you can, of course, modify the product over time, improve it, and make it more special, more unique to your brand. And so that was really taking off at the time. And I had a lot of success with that. The first 2 products that I published on Amazon were not a huge success, but they were a huge learning curve. And that's how I always encourage people, when you start selling on Amazon or any business that you start, if it fails, quote unquote fail, don't give up. Don't let that be the reason that you give up on your dreams of having an online business. Just see all the lessons that you can extract from that, because when you start anything, I mean, if anything didn't work out, there inevitably are lessons in that, and it's up to you to figure out what they are, to sit down, to contemplate, like, what could I have done differently to have different outcome, different results. And so the first two products I launched on Amazon, they did all right. You know, I didn't become a millionaire off of them. I didn't make a ton of money, but I made enough money to continuously reinvest in more inventory. And the greatest thing that I received from that experience was just the experience in and of itself of learning, okay, this is how you source a product from China. This is how you talk to suppliers. This is how you create a graphic for your brand. This is how you create an Amazon listing. This is how you contact your customers. Like, the whole process of setting all of that up was a huge learning curve, and I got to learn that with those first couple of products. And even though they weren't a huge success, I didn't say, okay, well, this just isn't for me then, and I'm going to give up on selling on Amazon because it's just not what I was made out to be. You know, I was told a lie. No, I said, I just haven't figured it out yet. You know, just because I haven't become successful doesn't mean that this is not an opportunity. Of course, there's other people who've had a lot of success on Amazon. Why can't it be me? I just have to figure it out. And so that's when I came across my third product, and my mind just expanded a lot more at that point. I just thought, I thought bigger picture. And that's when I really decided to build a brand and decided I'm going to learn how to do all of that. And you know, guys, I used to do coaching in the past for people who were selling on Amazon. And one of my biggest pet peeves is when people would tell me, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to create social media content. I don't know how to set up Amazon listings. I don't know how to do SEO research. I don't know how to do, you know, Amazon ads or Facebook ads. And I would be like, what do you mean you don't know how? Yeah, of course you don't know how to do it. You've never done it before. But just like a kid doesn't know how to walk, do you think the kid's going to say, oh, I'm never going to learn, you know, forget about it? No, the kid's just going to try and try and try. He's going to keep falling, and he's going to keep trying. And so your responsibility as the entrepreneur is to say, I don't know yet, but I'm going to learn how to do this. And that really does come down to how bad you want it. So I found a lot of people would say that they want this dream of having their own business, having an online business, achieving financial freedom, living their dream lifestyle. Everyone would say that to me. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. Every time I would meet someone and they would ask me what I do for a living, not once did I have someone not interested in seeking more information from me for their own pursuit. Like, everyone wanted to do that, but not everyone had the will. You have to have a true deep desire that it doesn't matter what kind of challenge you're going to be faced with. It doesn't matter what kind of unknown you're going to be put in. You're willing to learn whatever you have to learn. You're willing to make whatever sacrifice you have to sacrifice. You basically have to be willing to do whatever you have to do at all costs. Of course, you've got your morals and your ethics, but aside from that, you're willing to give it 100%. And so not everyone is. And I learned that through the coaching experience that I had, because before I was kind of naive to think that everyone who said they wanted this dream actually really meant it. And the reality was that a lot of people just only wanted it if it came easy. And the truth is that in life, success is not easy. It's going to require work. It's going to require creativity. It's going to require thinking outside the box. It's going to require learning. And you have to just be completely committed to it if that's your goal. Okay. See another question here. Ivan says, thank you, Tatiana. You have helped me make better decisions. God bless you and pay you back. Thank you so much. It's very sweet. Hello, I'm doing great. Thank you. Oh, awesome. Mansoor says, I'm watching your videos since you have 200,000 subscribers. Aw, thank you. That's so sweet. Epic Elegance says, I have really missed your creative ideas you used to share with us. Please come back. Oh, yes, I know it breaks my heart a little bit because I know that many of you do want me to continuously post, some of the older content that I would share about selling on Amazon, about marketing, online business. And I'm just not in that right now, that's not my life right now. Before, that was so easy for me to share because it was authentic. I was doing it. I was doing my Amazon business. I was doing all of those things so I could share that kind of content with you and really have an impact, because here I am live doing those things, and just I'm a few steps ahead of you guys, and that's why it was so beneficial. But the truth is that I'm just not doing that right now in my life. Like I'm not selling on Amazon anymore. It doesn't mean it's not an opportunity. It just means I no longer am choosing to do that. I don't need to do that. And I'm choosing to use my time on different things. So again, my focus is my family, health, and really my focus is on what do I want to feel every day when I wake up in the morning? How do I want to feel, and what things can I do throughout the day to help me achieve these feelings? And so if I am going to be sharing content, I'm still happy to answer all the questions on these subjects to the best of my knowledge. But I'm going to be sharing more content that is relevant to where I'm at right now in my life. I can't go backwards. I have to move forward, even if that's not 100% of what my audience wants to see. Is this your first live video? Yes, it's my first live video in a long time. I haven't been live in forever. Yeah, it's actually a little bit, it used to come a lot more naturally to me, but that's the thing. People used to ask me, how do you get good at speaking? How do you get good at creating YouTube videos? And the truth is, it's just practice. And I can say so now after not having created content for many, many, many months. I'm not as good as I used to be at communicating. I'm not as confident as I was. I'm more nervous than I was because I just haven't done it in so long. And so it really comes down to practice. And I know that if I now create, put on some live videos and create some content more consistently, it's all going to come back. It's just a matter of, I've distanced myself from that for so long. Oh, I'm a little behind on comments. Okay. Yes, but you have to work sleepless nights to make online business work for you. You are right. There are some days that you might not get as much sleep as other days. And that is part of the sacrifice that I was alluding to earlier, that you have to be willing to get less sleep if you really want to create that kind of success in your life. In my experience, I always got good sleep. I always went to bed early and woke up early. But I would wake up at 5 a.m. and I would work 10, 14 hours a day, no problem. I would just be sitting here, me and Steph both side by side, and that was just our day. And I was totally fine with that. But that also part of the question earlier, someone was asking me if I were to do this in 2023, Amazon. I mean, I was really lucky to start an online business young. I have to admit that obviously when you're younger and you don't have responsibilities, it makes it a lot easier to give 100% of your focus to one thing. When you don't have a child to take care of, you don't have a home to take care of, you don't have work, so as you get older, you have to go to work every day, that's why it's if you're young and you're watching this, you have such an advantage over a lot of people. It doesn't mean that when you're older you can't create success. I've met plenty of people who do. Don't make that your excuse. I'm just saying that when you are young, that is also in and of itself a huge advantage. Your kitchen looks so pretty and clean. Oh, it's actually not my kitchen. I'm in the den. So this is a separate house from our house. It's our guest house. So this is where my mom's actually coming here in a couple weeks, and so this is where the guests will stay. But I also use it as an office. What's my ethnicity? So my mom is Lebanese and my dad is Dutch. My mom's also like Brazilian. Her dad's Brazilian, and her family immigrated there, during the Civil War in Brazil. So we have a lot of roots there. That's why I go to Brazil, because I have my family there. I've never been to Lebanon, but technically I'm Lebanese Dutch. Okay. Why don't you have a chef? I would love to hire a chef, but it is, so one of the benefits of living in Panama is that the cost of hiring services is very low by comparison to anywhere in North America. So if you want to hire a chef, if you want to hire a nanny, if you want to hire a full-time cleaner, if you want to hire a landscaper, if you want to hire a chauffeur, the cost of these kinds of services is very low. The hourly rate here is very low. So it is affordable to even the middle class here in Panama. It's very common for the middle class. They grow up with nannies, full-time nannies. Here, usually the moms and the dads, they work full-time, and they have basically a full-time nanny or two raising their kids. And so that's very common here. So I would love to hire a chef. However, to find the right people is the challenge. I have actually been looking for someone that we can have as a nanny for the last 2.5 months. I've contacted, oh my goodness, hundreds of people now. And I know I'm picky because Lucas is my world. He's everything. And I'm looking for an A player. Because if I'm going to have someone else spending time with him, I want it to be a good influence. And so I know I don't have low expectations. But to find the right people is sometimes the challenge. Because you want someone who's, for example, if I want a chef, I want someone who can understand about probiotics and kefirs and juicing and all of these simple things. I don't cook with canola oil and seed oils, and I don't use these seasonings, things that are not part of this culture. It would be a big, I would have to do a lot of teaching to this person, and that's probably what I'll have to do inevitably. But I'm kind of hoping I can find someone who has some sort of a background in health or certain diet preferences. So far, I haven't found that. Are you going to homeschool Lucas? And if so, will you be doing it by yourself? Good question. So this is something that we're still deciding on. We still have time. What we have decided on for now is that we're not going to be putting Lucas into a daycare. In the place that we live, there is a small school here. There's about 1,000. No, I'm not sure how many kids. It's a small school. But it is growing, and it's a wonderful school. I mean, the kids love the teachers. I've just heard rave reviews about it. So because of also the way they want to teach the kids, I feel comfortable putting him in there around age 3 or 4 for socializing, playing, doing arts and crafts, doing things with teachers. But at a later age, I don't know if I'll put him in that school. We've always kind of been of the train of thought that we do want to homeschool. However, our approach to homeschooling would be maybe not the mainstream approach. We would want to hire a private tutor or several that can be teaching him. And I'm not a teacher. I'm going to do my best. My role as a parent is to teach my child. I'm going to be the main teacher. The biggest education is the education of life. So it's taking him out every day when we go to the beach, and we're finding insects, and we're finding animals, and we're talking about these things. And so I am, of course, teaching him in those ways. But as he gets older, when it comes to more of the formal subjects, we definitely would hire that out. I want to find someone who is well-versed and knowledgeable on these things to teach him. I wouldn't be worried about the socialization aspect. That is the biggest thing that people argue about when it comes to homeschooling. Is they think, oh, your kids are just going to be weird and antisocial. But that's if you homeschool the wrong way. There's a wrong way of homeschooling, which would be the lazy way, which would be you have to really actively, as a homeschooling parent, get your kids involved in the community. And there's actually a community here of homeschoolers, where parents they're constantly volunteering their houses or going to different centers. The other day, they were the homeschooling group took the kids to a farm, and they did farm activities, playing with the mud and I don't know what. And you have to involve yourself in that way. So to be a homeschooling parent is to be a very involved parent, a very active parent. It's a big commitment. And so we're not 100% sure in which direction we would go in, because there is a great school here. I know that if my kid was in the school system in Canada or in the US, I definitely would homeschool, because I'm not a fan of what's going on in the school system there. So we'll have to figure that out with time, but probably going to homeschool as he gets older. But when he's younger, probably put him in some of the I think it's preschool, or is it, I don't know what it is, around age 3 or 4. I'm not going to do anything earlier than age 3, because if you guys watched my last video, I talked about the attachment relationship between parent and child and how important that is in the first 3 years. And that was really one of the biggest things that changed my mindset. I thought before having Lucas, I thought I will have Lucas, and then after my maternity leave, I'll go back to work. I'll continue doing what I did before. Nothing's to change. I'm still a boss lady. I'm still an entrepreneur. I don't need to change that. But everything changed when I learned about how important my role is as his mother. And I realized that this is the most important thing that I can do with my time. Doesn't mean it's the only important thing. There's other ways that I can contribute to society as a woman, and I will. I have my whole life ahead of me to do that. But right now, it's such a critical time. These first 3 years of his life are formative. His social emotional brain develops rapidly in the first 3 years, and what we've learned over 40 years of attachment research is how babies need to attach with their primary caregiver. It's actually a survival instinct. Babies are born extremely helpless, more helpless than any other mammal. If you look at, a calf or something, they're born and they can walk. They can kind of fend for themselves a little bit, Not that it's a mammal, but we were just watching the turtle release. Baby turtles get released into the ocean. The mama turtles, they give birth on land, and then they leave the babies, and they just go off into the ocean, and the babies have to crawl into the ocean. They're on their own for, fending for themselves from day one. So us as humans, we're extremely vulnerable. We're very different. We are dependent on our parents, our primary caregiver, usually our mother, for a very long time. And those first 3 years, neurologically, the brain chemistry, what's going on in the brain, is critical to form that attachment. The first year forms the attachment. The 2 following years is really just reassuring that attachment. And so what they found, that if you secure that attachment in those first 3 years, your kid will thrive mentally. And with the whole mental health epidemic that we are witnessing right now with youth in our culture, this is so alarming to me. Like, this became top priority for me over, my business. Because I'm like, I want to ensure that I do my part to help Lucas thrive mentally, because mental health is such a strong epidemic. And I have personal experience with it now. I went through a postpartum depression. I know how scary that feels, to be suffering emotionally, mentally. And so they found that if the child does not have that secure attachment in the first 3 years, there is a period of time that you can remedy that. But if they really don't feel that attachment to their primary caregiver, that leads to anxiety down the road. It can lead to depression, and it can even lead to psychological problems. So there's a lot of repercussions to this. And so the more I learned about this, and the more I realized how research-based this is evidence-based, this isn't just theory, this is all very well documented. I realized that this is, my role here right now is very impactful, and I'm going to take it seriously. So, yeah, I don't even know what the question was, but there you go. Okay. How does it feel to leave the country where you were born behind? It's a good question. I mean, I feel pretty good about it. We're coming from Canada. Canada is known to be an incredible country. People from all over the world want to immigrate to Canada because it's multicultural, there are many opportunities. But over the last number of years, Canada has become increasingly difficult to live in. There's been a lot of tension in the country. The affordability has just plummeted. I mean, people my age are not afford, the majority of people my age are not able to afford their own homes. They're going back to living in their parents' basements. The cost of housing went up by 25%, I think, in the last year or in the last couple years. You now have to be in the top 10% of income earners to potentially be able to receive a mortgage. So you need to be earning about $300,000 a year to be able to be considered for a mortgage to buy a house. So people are really upset about that because it's just incredibly expensive to live there now. And so a lot of Canadians are suffering. And they really just got to figure their shit out. You know, Canada just needs to figure out the housing crisis and a lot of political issues. So I'm very happy to not be in Canada right now, to be honest. I feel like, you know, here, Panama gets a little bit of a bad rap. People don't know Panama for the Panama Papers, and they don't really think of Panama as a great place to live. But it's been a wonderful place for people to retire for decades now. A lot of people have come here to retire, and increasingly more people are coming here, you know, around my age to live here because the cost of living is a lot lower. And, you know, there's the weather, of course. I know it's always very predictable. Every day I can consider myself wearing sunny weather clothes. We actually don't own any jackets here. You do need an umbrella because it does rain, but you don't need a jacket. So, I mean, I don't necessarily miss it. Now, what's difficult about leaving your country is leaving your family. And that's something I did not think of too much before I had Lucas. I thought because I had traveled so much in the years prior to having my son, I had been so far away from my family anyways. I was so used to that lifestyle of just being independent. It's just me and Stefan for so many years. I thought moving to another country, it's just not going to be any different. But I realized, as a woman, after you have kids, you're going to want to be near your mom. Your mama's a special one, Mama Bear. And as much as you can, sometimes it might be frustrating to be with your mom or your mother-in-law, it's just, there's also a sense of comfort. And I would love if she was here right now, if Lucas could go, she can babysit Lucas, and he can go over to her place, or she can come here. And I just feel this sense of ease knowing that he's with someone who has a similar investment in his upbringing as I do, right? When it comes to childcare, if it can't be one of the parents, and if it can't be, the next best thing is a kinship bond, someone who is a family member, such as a grandmother, a grandfather, an aunt and uncle, someone who is part of the family who has a similar investment in that child. So it would be so convenient and so nice to have someone close by now. And also it's good for him to be raised not just by his parents, by multi-generational. That's something that we miss now from back in the day. Kids, they were raised by the village. And what does that mean? That means that they were raised by people of varying ages, people 5 years older than them and 50 years older than them. And that teaches them a lot. There's a lot of wisdom that gets passed down. And now, Gabor Mate has written a book about this. We live in an infantilized society where kids are raising kids. And that's one of the problems with daycare is the ratio is that there's so many kids to the number of adults. And kids can't meet each other's needs in the same way that an adult can meet a child's needs. And so a lot of needs go unmet. And so kids also become more immature when they're not, when they're not spending a big majority of their time around adults or grandparents. There's a lot of growing up that happens when they are around older generations. So that's something I would definitely factor in if you are thinking about leaving your country, moving abroad. Is there a way that you can bring your family with you? Maybe it's a retired parent, or just factor that in if you haven't already started a family. Okay. It's getting hot in here, not gonna lie. I should turn on that AC a little higher. Okay, next question. How exactly do you plan to raise Lucas? I want to have a kid, have a house in 2 countries as well, but I'm worried on how to raise my kid. Yeah, so this kind of lifestyle, the 2-country lifestyle, is not the easy lifestyle, Sometimes I sit down and I think, why did I complicate my life? Why did I complicate life by deciding to live this way? But ultimately, the benefits for us outweigh some of the inconveniences of this lifestyle. And so for us right now, this works well. As kids get older, I don't think that the 2-country lifestyle will work as well. I know there are families that travel all over the world, and that provides their children with such a cultural education. And I think that's wonderful. But I think that it's not fair to the children as they get older. They develop these friendships. You have your best friend, or you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and then you have to leave them. I think that it becomes emotionally really disruptive. And when the kids grow up and they become adolescents, they have a very sensitive brain, especially young girls. And I just want to do what I can to not disrupt that. So I think that things will change when they get older. We know we're going to be living this kind of lifestyle for the next 10 years. So that means that we're planning to spend potentially half the time in Panama and half the time in Canada. That's the goal, is to kind of work our way up to half the time. So 6 months here, 6 months there. Right now we're doing much more time in Panama, about 4 months in Canada. But the way that this works is, one, because if we did choose to use the school here, which it's a very flexible school, so they have a lot of families that need that kind of flexibility. So you can take some courses online if you need to. If you want to send your kid to the school 2 days a week, they allow you to do that. So they're very flexible. Another option, of course, is also the homeschooling. So when you do the homeschooling, of course, having that kind of lifestyle just makes things 1,000 times easier. So, yeah, I mean, I can't say too much about that now because we haven't really fully experienced it. But the plan is that, when they're young, this is going to be a lot easier. As they get older, we probably are going to look for one place to kind of settle in more until they finish high school, or, until they're kind of off on their own. How has the shift from maiden to mother been? How has your relationship to beauty changed? Oh, interesting. Relationship to beauty changed. Well, okay, the transition from maiden to mother is, to me, becoming a mom came very naturally. The minute I've always been very motherly, instinctually. I've always been very motherly. I knew I wanted to have kids since I was a kid. And the moment that Lucas was born, I was just overwhelmed with a love that is just indescribable. And I know that most parents have this experience when you think of like what's the most beautiful moment in your life. You think of like the birth of your child. Even though my personal birth experience was pretty wild, um, in spite of that, you know, just seeing him for the first time and holding him for the first time, oh my God. It's just like, it's a window to heaven. To me, the whole experience of having a child is a deeply spiritual experience. Like, it's human life, the creation of human life coming through you. So it's incredibly empowering. And even though I didn't have the quote unquote, you know, follow the birth plan that I wanted and have the magical birth experience that I hadn't hoped for, I still had a deeply spiritual and beautiful experience. And that also helped with the transition to becoming a mother, because I felt empowered in this new role that I now have this new responsibility. And it doesn't feel like, oh, responsibility feels heavy. It feels like, wow, what a gift. What a gift to be able to be in this position to um, give this child life, to nurse it, to nurture it, to help it to grow and learn and flourish. And like, you know, it just becomes more and more rewarding. You know, the initial stages of having a newborn can be very challenging. It's a lot of crying. As a first-time mom, you're not used to that yet. You know, there's a lot of figuring things out, especially if you have a child that is sick. You know, it's very stressful. But as they grow older, Lucas is now 1.5 years, and you know, it just becomes more and more rewarding and more fun. Like, he is such a goofball. It actually blows my mind how he's already trying to be like a comedian. Like, he's trying to make us laugh all the time. And I think it's just hilarious how at such a young age he understands the things he understands. And just to see his bright smile, he's always smiling, and to see his smile just makes everything worth it. And you know, that's is actually, so I made the decision to not show Lucas on social media when he turned 12 months old. And actually, part of the reason that I stopped sharing things on Instagram and on social media was because it was so hard to not share him, because he's my whole life. How am I supposed to create lifestyle content and he's not in it when he's always with me? It would have to be very staged. I would have to like be like, hey, turn around, or let's like retake the shot. And that's just not natural. I'm not going to go to that extent. I'm not going to like, you know, I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to edit my videos and blur his face. So although there's ways that it can be done, I'm just not willing to do that. So it's part of the reason why I kind of stopped sharing, because, you know, he's just my world and he's always there with me. So I'm actually reconsidering the decision now to share him on social media. I'd love to get your guys' feedback. You know, for me, I was pretty confident about the decision. But then, you know, Steph and I started talking more. We started to say, you know, he's probably going to be, you know, we're probably going to teach him about public speaking and about some of the things that we've learned and benefited from. And, you know, he's probably going to be online. You know, there's a lot of if factors, and I'm not sure on that decision anymore. Okay, and then that question about how has your relationship to beauty changed? I mean, I definitely care less if I, you know, like I definitely care less about the aesthetic beauty. I don't, you know, put as much time into that anymore. I value more just the beauty around me, the beauty in nature, the beauty in the things I'm doing, the beauty in Lucas. Like, I'm noticing more beauty around me. It's not as self-centered as it used to be. And, you know, but of course, you know, things change after you have a kid. I change, the way I look changes, and sometimes that can be a hit to the ego. And I've just learned that, you know, to accept all of these changes in my beauty, in my body, in my life, and just see it as this is just me becoming that mother, you know, from maiden to mother. I'm maturing. All of these changes come with this newfound experience and knowledge, and I respect that. Like, that's why I respect older people, because I I can't diminish just the life experience that they have. They do have a lot to offer based on just the number of years that they've lived. Do you consider yourself a crunchy mom? Yeah, I actually would consider myself a crunchy mom. Now, there's some things that I think are exaggerated when it comes to the crunchy lifestyle, but overall, I've always been like very clean. Like, I don't use antiperspirant deodorants. I've always used natural deodorants. I've always used fluoride-free toothpaste. I've always like never worn perfume, things with fragrance. I've always been like that. I never wear like any of the shampoos and conditioners that are from like Sephora. I always get like natural ones. I've always been like that, and now I guess I've just taken it to another level after having a kid, because again, there's just more things that come up when it comes to health, and just really do a lot of research when it comes to any kind of big decisions. I really take it into my own hands. I don't just blindly trust any kind of authority, not even doctors. While I respect their opinions and I respect their time, I don't blindly trust everything that they say. So I take it all into consideration, and then I do my own research. And that has worked very well for me. I really can't say I have any regrets when it comes to my decisions regarding health over the last, well, I mean, for the last 10 years, let's say. I followed you since you first started coming. I followed you since you first started. Coming from so much mental abuse in life, being really down on myself, you are and have been such an inspiration to me to stay positive. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Jenny. That's awesome. I'm so sorry to hear that you've gone through that, but to hear that you have been able to stay positive in a sense that's going to serve you in life, instead of finding, you have all the reasons to be dragged down, but you're looking for the reasons to rise up, and that's the key, because life is not easy. Life is difficult. Life is stressful. There are lots of problems in life, and everyone has a different hand handed to them. For some people, they have it really rough, but it's always, it depends on who you talk to. It's different for everyone. It's very subjective. But by no means, most people don't have a very easy life. But it's in those trials and tribulations in life that we have growing opportunities. And so when you can be in that place where you are faced with a challenge or adversity in your life, and you can find the strength within you to overcome that, and then to rise up beyond that, that's what is inspiring. That's what inspires other people to do the same. And I think that is the only way to overcome these tribulations in life, is that you have to find something in it that you can grow from. I'm 32 and currently developing a product I'm very excited about. I'd like to still have kids within the next few years. Any advice on balancing these two desires given my biological clock? All right, well, 32 is still young. I have plenty of friends who are in their 40s. I actually have one who just had a kid. She's 40. And she's like really healthy pregnancy, really healthy baby. It went great for her. So you're not too much up there. Don't worry too much about that. But yeah, I do understand you're not 25. So I will say that it's great that you kind of know what your timeline is. You know that you want to have kids, so you know what it is that you're after. You have a future goal, and that you have time in advance to prepare for that. That's huge, right? So I would advise you to just use this time that you have right now without the responsibility of children to grind, to put your foot to the pedal and just push on that accelerator and make things happen. So do what you can to figure out your business, your product development, whatever it is that you're doing. Just use the next 2 years very wisely. Use your time very wisely. and just say, you know what, like I'm going to commit myself for the next 2 years to create success and to set up the systems so that when I am pregnant, I can get to this place where things are semi-automated so that I can take a step back from my business and I am not going to lose my business. Like my business will be able to run without me. That's the key. So you need to make sure that you set up the foundations in your business so that it is not 100% dependent on you, because then you become the bottleneck of the business. And that can be very difficult when you're a new mom and you have this newborn who's relying on you for sustenance, and you want to give that newborn all your attention, and you're exhausted all the time, and you still have this business that you need to take care of. So try and, first of all, set it up, create success, but then really set the foundations and systematize it and outsource what you need to outsource to have it functioning without you. Okay. Are you still doing neurofeedback training? Are you also planning to go through the ayahuasca experience? No, I'm not doing the neurofeedback anymore. That was something that I only did once. That's not something that you do. I mean, you can do it as much as you want, but it's very expensive. So I haven't felt the need to do that again. I also did the ayahuasca one time, and also I don't feel the need to go back and do that again. I know other people might be called to do it again. I feel very resolved in my life. I don't feel like I have shadows in my past, unresolved problems, I'm sure there are some things, but mentally and emotionally, I feel like I'm in a good place. I don't have things that people say that trigger me, you know, like I just feel very steady. And to me, that is my indication that I don't need to go through such a wild experience to help myself heal from some of these things that might be subconsciously plaguing me. So yeah, it was a great experience that I had with the ayahuasca. It was beautiful, but it was also very intense. And I wouldn't just naively go into it just for fun. Like that to me is you have to think very deeply about whether or not you want to have that kind of experience, if it's suited for you, and be very intentional about it. You know, go in with like, what is it that I am trying to achieve by having this kind of experience? I should have brought some water here, huh? I didn't think of that. Okay. Okay, Victory says, I'm having difficulty figuring out everything for my life. Every step I move to makes me feel like I don't know anything, regardless of the successes from the past struggles. What's your advice on this? So it sounds to me like you don't have a clear vision. So when people say that they feel like they're just kind of moving through life and they don't feel like they have direction, and they feel like, you know, every day passes and there's not really much intention behind it and life is just passing me by. To me, that sounds like you don't have a clear vision for what it is that you want to achieve. And so my biggest advice to you is you got to start with the vision. You got to get really clear. What do I want for my life? What is the end goal vision? And this will change over time, so don't put too much pressure on yourself. But right now, what is it that I would like to achieve? And you can decide what that time span is. Is it in the next 5 years? Is it in the next 10 years? What is the ultimate goal and the vision for your life? And so when you have that vision, that now becomes that destination, and then you have something that you're working towards. And then you can all of a sudden make decisions on what are the things that I need to do, what are the stepping stones I need to take that will help me get closer and closer to achieving that vision. So the vision is what creates clarity in your life. And when there's a sense of clarity in your life, you feel good about that. You know, that's actually very empowering. Then you don't feel like you're just kind of swimming through life directionless. And, this is also feminine, masculine. So feminine is more going with the flow. The masculine is more about, having a destination. And I think what's important is for everyone to have not necessarily a balance, but to be able to ignite both of these flames within you, both the masculine and the feminine energy. So maybe you're very feminine, seems like you're a woman. I don't know, maybe you're very feminine and you really need to work on summoning more of that masculine energy within you. And likewise, if you're also very masculine, then you might want to learn how you can bring out some of that feminine with you, because we want to become wholesome. And, it doesn't mean that you need to have 50-50 a balance of your energies. No, it doesn't mean that. If you're mostly feminine, then you can continue to be mostly feminine, but you still need to know how to summon that masculine when it's necessary. And so when it comes to life planning and goal setting, that's a very masculine energy, and you might need to learn how to get yourself more into that state. So you have to start with a vision. The vision is going to help give you some clarity in life. And then from that vision, you kind of build yourself down and you think, what are the goals that if I achieve them will get me closer to that ultimate vision? And then you break the goals down into what are the steps I could take. And then you can even break those steps down into what are the daily tasks that I can do. And then you have a lot of clarity. You have a lot of direction. Every day you know exactly what it is that you need to achieve. And you feel the confidence that if I do these things, that I know that in a number of years or a number of months, I'm going to achieve my goals. And that feels good. That I think for a lot of people, that feels good to have that kind of direction in life. Tips for finding a partner that matches your values. Good question. Good question, because honestly, choosing who you're going to partner up with for life is probably one of the most important decisions you'll ever make in your life, because they're going to have the biggest influence on you, and especially if you decide to have a family with them. So it's a major decision. And I think that the way you're asking this is really awesome, because you're asking how to find a partner that matches your values, not just like someone that I can fall in love, because we all know, like, you can fall in love with almost anyone. Like, if there's a spark, you can really build that that fantasy, that love, that connection. That's not the hard part. Falling in love, I don't think, is the hard part. I think that the harder part is figuring out, are we aligned? And this is kind of the part that's not so sexy. This is the part that people don't really want to talk about when they're dating someone. They don't want to talk about these kind of details because it's like, oh, they just want to enjoy the playfulness and the fun of just like, the lust and the newness of it. But I think the key is to figure out, okay, what are the values that I have first and foremost? So you have to be clear on who you are as a person. What do you value in life? So it starts with you. And what's the hierarchy of your values? So you might say, well, I really value my freedom. And for me, freedom is number one, okay? And I really value travel. And travel is number two. And I really value, let's say, my health and fitness. Okay, and that's number three. So you have to make your list. And then you also have to kind of reflect on your list and see for yourself, are there any values that are going to be in conflict with me finding myself a partner? So if you really value freedom, if freedom is your number one value, you have to think, well, wait a minute. Do I really want to be in a long-term relationship with someone? Can I really commit to someone when freedom is my top value? And this is something that is very subconscious. A lot of people don't think about. A lot of men struggle with this. They say they want to be in a long-term relationship. They want to marry someone. They want to have a family. But then they're 40 plus years old and they still haven't achieved that. And I personally know a lot of guys like this. And then they think that, oh, they just haven't met the right person yet. And I think over 40 years, I think that you've met a lot of women. I know you've met a lot of women. And I'm sure that some of those women may have been compatible for you. But I think what the true issue is there's a conflict of values. And so you value so much your freedom that subconsciously you're sabotaging yourself from actually getting into this relationship. So first you have to analyze that for yourself, and then you have to have these open conversations with the person that you're dating, help them to discover what their values are, because maybe they've never thought about this subject themselves. So help them to figure out, okay, well, what is it that you're interested in? What do you do with your time? It's not just what you say. What do you do with your time? What do you believe? What are some things that are like very important beliefs of yours? These kinds of conversations need to be had. And from that place, you can decide, okay, do we have the love? Do we have aligned values? Do we have a shared vision? Do we have like our core beliefs that are in alignment? Because there are some beliefs that are very strong for people. And you might think, oh, so like, for example, religion is a big one. If you're like a hardcore Christian and you're with someone who is maybe, let's just say like atheist, and you say, okay, well, it's okay, like we'll make it work. But over time, as the years go on, there's going to be conflicts, and there's going to be conflicts that become big problems because you have this core belief that is so strong, so fundamental for you that you guys are going to butt heads when the honeymoon phase has worn off, and that might become a problem over a long period of time. So you have to think about like these core beliefs that you have as well, and if there's anything that's in conflict with the person that you are seeing. Hi, Tatiana. Thanks for all your hard work. My pleasure. Question, I have an Amazon handmade account with ads. However, I'm not getting any views on my listings. Can you provide some insights? Thanks again. Okay, so I'm not really familiar with Amazon handmade. However, I do know Amazon. So I think it's similar in terms of listings. I think the first thing is you have to figure out how are you going to direct traffic to your listing. Okay, so you have two options. You have paid traffic, so whether it's with Amazon ads, Facebook ads, any kind of paid advertising. And then you also have the free delivery, moving people from social media platforms to your listing. So you have to do either or both of those things to get people to your listing. Now, the second element of this is you have to make sure you have a great listing, because there's a lot of people who pay a lot of money in ads, and they see that there's people who are clicking on their listing, but they're not converting into customers. And so that would signify that you have a problem with your listing. Your listing is not selling them. You got to change something. So whether it's your title, your images, your copy, you got to figure out what is not appealing on my listing to these customers, these prospective customers. So make sure that you are reviewing the analytics, because you don't want to be spending a lot of money sending people to your listing and you're not reviewing the analytics, whereas if you did review the analytics, you would be able to see that it's just not converting well. As you want to constantly be changing things, modifying things until you get it right, until you see that, okay, my listing is converting. Now, you also might be making the mistake of targeting the wrong audience. So sometimes people do ads or even free social media, and they're targeting the wrong audience of people. And you're sending people to your listing, of course they're not going to buy it because it's not your target audience. So you have to get clear as the business owner, who is your target audience? If you're selling to everyone, you're selling to no one. That's something key to remember. So it helps to become very niche and narrow about who is your target audience. And one way that you can do this is you can come up with like, who is my prospective customer? So you can create your customer avatar. There's even some templates online for customer avatars. And it helps you kind of really think about like, who is it that I'm selling to? Who is my demographic? Who is my audience? Who's going to buy my product? And once you understand that, then you can better target these people. Okay, not sure how long I've been live for. I think I'm going to answer maybe 5 more questions. How do you manage work and rest to avoid getting burnt out? I'm the wrong person to ask with this because I have this type of personality where I will push through no matter how tired I am, no matter what kind of day I had. I will push through to just get whatever it is that I want to get done. So Stefan's actually been really helpful with this because he's not really like that. He really tunes in and he says, okay, today is going to be a rest day for me. Or, I'm like, after this, I'm done. Like, I'm just not going to do anything else right now. And he's good with putting things down and leaving things for another day. And I've had to learn that more from him. So he's able to kind of relax more and maybe potentially not get as burnt out as me. For me, I find myself perpetually getting in the state of burnout because I tend to do so much. I have a hard time just sitting down and not doing anything. So I'm not the best person to ask. But I think the key with that, when I was running my business, the key with that is you have to really think, okay, what are my limits? You have to get to know yourself. And everyone is different. For some people, they have just a lower threshold than others. Like I know I just have a high threshold, and even I push past my own threshold, and that's when I'm like done. And you have to learn, okay, what's my threshold, and when am I approaching it, and what am I going to do in order to help myself to unwind and relax and restore, so that the next day I can wake up and be ready to conquer the next task. So I think it's just a matter of getting to know yourself and respecting your boundaries, respecting your limits, and then having some sort of a self-care ritual so that you can relax and rest enough to be able to perform again the next day. Okay. Oops. Okay, I'm going to work my way. Okay, here we go. Trying to choose a couple more questions. I would love for you to do more mom, health, faith related videos. I think of you as a soul sister because of how similar our views are on life. That's why I follow you on Instagram too. Thank you. I'm very happy to create that kind of content because, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm into right now. So I'm glad to know that you are going to be one of the ones watching that. Okay, how important would you say personal ethics and values are to become truly successful? Interesting question. So truly successful, it's because the way you phrased it, you said truly successful instead of just successful. If you were to ask me how important are ethics and values to become successful, I would say, honestly, not that important because there are plenty of people who become successful who don't have a moral compass. So, but when you say truly successful, to me, true success is not about hitting a certain number financially. It's not about owning a Fortune 500 company. It's not about, the kind of success that we're sold in North America. To me, true success is having good mental health, having a great spiritual connection, feeling good every day, um, feeling alive, enjoying yourself. Like that to me is true success. So to create true success, yes, you need to follow your morals and your values, because what will happen if you don't is that you're going to feel this sense of incongruency. You might be working for a company, or you might be pursuing something that is making you monetary success, and you're thriving financially, but there's an incongruency with your values. And that's going to eventually, it's going to tear you up from the inside. And so I think that if you want to feel free and liberated and feel like you're on purpose in life and feel joyful and wake up and go to sleep sound without having a bad conscience, then you do have to follow, what are your values and your morals, and have that moral compass and be guided by your value system. I think that's really the only way to be inwardly successful, inwardly free. Otherwise, you're going to be trapped in a system that you're going to be filling up your pockets but emptying your reserves in here. What is your opinion about friendship? I'm in the place that I know a lot people, but I don't have close friends. I do try, but somehow it didn't happen. Seems like people come and go. Yeah, to me, it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality. And I would much rather not have any friends than to have friends that are having a negative impact on my life. Friends that are toxic, or friends that are draining my energy or bringing me down. I had a period in my life where I was just kind of purging my friends. I worked in a bar for many years. I worked in a restaurant, and I had a lot of girlfriends that they were just fun to be around. They would be fun to go to parties with. They'd be fun to drink with, but they would also be, stabbing you behind your back and creating drama and gossiping. And I realized that, wow, like this is bringing me down. This is sucking energy out of me. If I'm going to be around people, I want to be full of energy. I don't want to leave a conversation or leave a meeting with someone or leave a hangout and feel drained. That's my sign that this is not a friendship I should have. So I ended up traveling, which kind of was a good way to get away from people. And then I came back and I was like, I don't really want to reignite this friendship with you. So I ended up not really having any friends for a while, and totally fine with that. I found like I'm naturally more introverted, so it's easier for me. I can be at home and just be focused on my business or whatever my goals are, and hang out with someone maybe once a week, and that's enough for me. And that really helped me to develop a success mindset. It really helped me to get clear on who I am, on what I want. I built confidence on, I don't need to have a bunch of friends. I can still live a great life and not have a bunch of friends. I'd say now I have definitely more friends, but I don't have a ton of really close friends. I am quite guarded about that, and for me, I guard it because it's precious. Like, I think we should all be very selective of who we spend time with, because they are going to influence you whether you realize it or not. And so the people that I do choose to spend my time with, like, I'm really choosing to spend my time with them. And the friendships that I do have, I really do invest in those friendships because I've chosen them, I've selected them. They're not just friends because one day I met them on the street and we live close by. It's like, no, like, I actually want to be your friend, and so I'm going to invest in this friendship. So don't feel like you need to have a whole bunch of friends. Sometimes it's okay to be alone, to have a period in your life where you're just working on yourself, you're doing more self-reflection, you're growing as a person. And there might be another time in your life where you are more of a social butterfly. But I would say, like, yeah, you have to be very, very just selective about who you let in your life. Even in fact, like when I was building my business, I realized that my mom, whom I love so much, was a negative energy for me every day. I was having such a hard time because she wanted me to continue my studies in university. And every time she would see me working my business, it was just this conflict. I was like, I gotta get out of this house. So I moved out, and that made a huge difference in the shift in energy and in what I was able to produce, because I was no longer being affected by that energy. We're so sensitive as humans. You can have one person say one comment or do one thing, and it can ruin your whole day. And we have to be better about that. That's where the personal growth comes in, so we're not so affected. But most of us, we are very affected by things like that. Today, for example, I was supposed to meet up with, one of these nannies that I've been interviewing. I was going to go pick her up. And I'm going to pick her up, and then I text her, and she's like, oh, yeah, I'm not coming. I'm like, when were you going to tell me this? Like, when I arrived at the door? And I just felt like, how rude. She doesn't respect my time. But, I had to just get over that and just accept it. But for some people, that might ruin their whole day, change their whole perspective on how they view people, maybe makes them give up on the whole search for a nanny. So having said that, yeah, be selective about who you have in your life and have no shame regarding that. All right, last question. Hi, Tatiana. Is it possible to have a successful relationship when there is a big gap in ambition between one partner and the other? Ooh, good question. Yes, it is possible to have a successful relationship because you don't need to be two of the same people. And you have to understand that each partner can contribute in different ways. And sometimes the differences between the two of you is what will create the polarity. So if you're both very ambitious and you're both wanting to do the same thing and you're both together all the time, both growing all the time, I mean, that's me and Stefan. And it's wonderful, and you can be a power couple, but over time you realize that it's in the distance and in some of the differences that the polarity is created. And I think that if someone is not as ambitious as you, as long as they're not pulling you down, this is the key. So there's sometimes people who are extremely ambitious themselves. They find someone, they fall in love with them, but this person is just like pulling them down energy-wise. They're not supporting their vision, they're not supporting their goals, and even though they love them, they're just feeling like they're not in alignment. And it's not that that person's not ambitious, it's that that person is, providing a negative energy to what it is that you're trying to achieve in your life. And you always want to make sure that when you get into a relationship, that you're sharing a vision of what you want. So if you're working towards something, your partner has to also be in support of that so that you can both grow together. So maybe they aren't as ambitious as you in business, but they understand your goals and your ambitions, and they want to support the shared vision that you have together. So they're going to support you when you work in your business. So when you are working your 10-hour days on your computer or whatever it is, they're not going to come and nag you and say, you don't spend time with me or this and that. And it's like, no, they understand that you're working towards a vision that hopefully the two of you share together. And their contribution can come in different ways. So maybe they won't be as ambitious as you in the business side of things, but maybe their ambition or maybe their contribution comes in other ways. Maybe they're more go with the flow. Maybe they're more feminine, and maybe they're going to contribute in ways of, making your house into a home. Or maybe it's like helping you bring out that playful side, or helping you to relax after you've been so hardworking all day. There's other ways that they can contribute. And so I don't think that both partners need to be equally ambitious, as long as they're not bringing each other down. That's the key. So the key is to have that support system, and that's what makes a relationship work long term. not you guys having to be equal or the same, but in both having that shared vision and supporting each other's goals and ambitions. All right, that is it. Thank you so much, guys, for sticking around and asking me all these great questions. It's been really fun, actually, and I'm going to be back to do some more live videos, but also going to be hopefully sharing with you guys more lifestyle content. I know you guys liked the vlogs that I did in the past, so I think I'll get back to doing some of those vlogs, sharing with you guys the lifestyle here in Panama, maybe some healthy cooking. Yeah, some things that I'm interested in that maybe some of you are interested in as well. So thanks again for watching, and you guys have a beautiful, blessed day.